the Apple tradition of creating? Can he reach into the future? Did that concern you? Did you think about that? Were you committed to prove that Apple had a future beyond the groundwork that Steve Jobs had laid?
The decision that saved Apple. In the summer of 1997, Apple was roughly 90 days away from running out of cash. Inside the company, that number wasn't speculation. It appeared in internal reports. It was discussed in meetings. The company that once defined the personal computer industry was operating on borrowed time. Over the previous decade, Apple's stock had lost more than 80% of its value. Market share had fallen below 4%. Microsoft Windows had scaled globally while Apple's relevance narrowed. 3 CEOs had come and gone. The product catalog had expanded into dozens of models, many competing against one another. Operational discipline had eroded. Analysts weren't debating recovery. They were estimating how long liquidation might take. Then, a decision was made. Not a new product, not a marketing reinvention, a decision about control. Everything that followed came from that. To understand Apple in 1997, you have to go back a decade. In 1985, Steve Jobs was removed from the company he co-founded. The board believed Apple needed operational stability more than creative volatility. At the time, that decision was defensible. Professional management followed. Revenues held steady. The Macintosh retained a loyal base. But something less measurable began to fade. Focus. By the mid-1990s, Apple was selling dozens of computer variants. The Performa line alone contained more than 20 models. There were printers, cameras, a handheld device called Newton, even a gaming console known as Pippin. Each project made sense on its own. Together, they represented fragmentation. Leadership turnover made it worse. John Sculley was replaced by Michael Spindler. Spindler was replaced by Gil Amelio. Each transition shifted priorities. Each strategy revision added complexity instead of removing it. Meanwhile, Windows 95 reshaped the industry. It ran on hardware from dozens of manufacturers. It achieved scale Apple could not match. Apple's integration advantage still existed, but without clarity, it weakened. By 1996, the question was no longer how Apple would grow, it was whether it would survive. Gil Amelio inherited mounting losses. In fiscal 1996, Apple lost approximately $800 million. Inventory piled up. Retailers discounted aggressively. Consumer demand softened. But the deeper issue was technical. The Macintosh operating system was aging. It lacked protected memory. A single application crash could disable the entire system. Years of internal attempts to modernize the software had failed. A project known as Copeland consumed resources without producing a shippable product. Internally, it was acknowledged as unsalvageable. Apple needed a modern operating system. It could build one, which would take years it did not have. It could license one, which would dilute control. Or it could acquire one. In December 1996, Apple announced it would purchase Next for approximately $427 million. Officially, the deal was about technology. Unofficially, it brought Steve Jobs back. Initially, Jobs returned as an advisor, no executive title, no formal authority. Within months, that changed. Financial losses continued. Investor confidence did not recover. In July 1997, Gil Amelio resigned under board pressure. The board asked Steve Jobs to serve as interim CEO. The title suggested temporary. The authority did not. This was the turning point. The next acquisition provided software, but the decision to give Jobs operational control provided direction. Inside the company, the shift was immediate. Meetings shortened, projects were canceled, decisions were no longer deferred across committees. Accountability centralized. Senior executives departed, entire product lines disappeared. The transformation wasn't emotional, it was structural. What changed Apple's trajectory was not a product announcement. It was the consolidation of authority at a moment of crisis. Jobs began with reduction. Apple's dozens of computer models were cut to 4. Peripheral experiments were eliminated. The Newton was discontinued. Macintosh clone licensing agreements were terminated. The objective was not expansion, it was clarity. With fewer products, engineering teams could concentrate effort. Manufacturing became predictable. Marketing regained coherence. In August 1997, Apple announced a partnership with Microsoft. Microsoft invested $150 million and committed to continuing development of Office for Macintosh. The symbolism was controversial. The function was essential. Financial pressure eased. Stability returned incrementally. In August 1998, Apple introduced the iMac. The iMac wasn't revolutionary hardware. Its significance was strategic simplicity. One consumer desktop, limited configurations, a coherent identity. It sold 800,000 units in the first 139 days. Apple returned to profitability. The decision of 1997 did not produce instant transformation. They produced conditions. Simplification created bandwidth. Financial stabilization created time. Centralized authority created alignment. When Apple launched the iPod in 2001, it did so within a company no longer distracted by dozens of peripheral initiatives. When the iPhone arrived in 2007, it emerged from an organization capable of coordinating hardware, software, supply chain, and retail with precision. The pattern was consistent. Fewer products, deeper investments, integrated systems. Not every product succeeded. The trajectory was not linear. But after 1997, Apple possessed something it previously lacked: direction. Apple's recovery is often framed as a story of innovation or personality. Those elements mattered, but they were not the origin of change. The origin was structural. The board made a decision to consolidate authority at a moment when diffusion of responsibility had become fatal. The next acquisition supplied technology. The decision supplied control. In retrospect, Apple was not saved by innovation first. It was saved by clarity and by the willingness to concentrate power long enough to act on it.